Hi, everyone. Welcome back to First Principles. Today we've got Tanveer with us. Hi, Tanveer.
Hello.
All right. So we've been discussing about design thinking, but before that, Tanveer, if you can introduce yourself to our audience.
Thanks, Saagar, for inviting me to this podcast. How should I define Tanveer? Well, I'm a curious, creative person, ambivert by personality, mostly introvert. But when it's needed, I take up the space and then lead. Um, I am a simple person, find joy in simple things in life, discovering nifty things, nature lover, explorer. Um, Believe in living and letting others live. No judgments. And life is beautiful, and that's how it needs to be enjoyed. So that's about me. Professionally, I am a consultant for Fortune 100 and 500 companies. Um, I had started my career with a technical degree. I have a master's in computer applications and management.
Hmm,
Um, Started my career as a technical person, hardcore developer, but slowly I wanted to explore more wider aspects of industry.
hmm,
Um, got introduced to by my mentors on management concepts, so got some more certification on management side, PMP and etc. Um, Slowly discovered how design orients, and that was a game changer for me. I got into design, got myself certified, have multiple mentors, and that's how I got introduced slowly and read a lot of books basically. That's how my mind expanded towards design, and when I got into design, it was my life changed. The kind of
hmm.
person I was, I changed. So right now, I have multiple certifications in um, UX design and design thinking, all those service design concepts. Um, Apart from work, I am passionate about design, of course. So when I moved to Houston, being a consultant, I have to move around for work a lot. When I moved to Houston, I saw that the design was not as much discussed,
Hmm,
was not as popular. So I founded this community uh, that is called Design Thinking and Innovation,
hmm.
and through which I try to spread the concepts of design. Um, it's a community where all the like-minded people who are passionate about design come together, and then we have various events. So that's about me.
Hmm.
It's how you can define the way.
Perfect. Well, that was a very nice, very well-rounded definition. I'm curious though. You said after a while you got gravitated towards design. Once you took it up, your life changed. So, can you explain how?
Well, your life changes when your thinking changes,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
It's always inside you. And when you explore something that, aha, oh, I never knew that, a new aspect that you discover about yourself is what is called life change. Because you start seeing something that you were not seeing before.
Hmm,
Everything is around us, but are we able to see everything? Are we able to learn and then utilize those things in our lives, right? So I think seeing the design and the concepts associated with it changed me as a person.
hmm,
I am now more empathetic. I'm now more able to see what people are saying. I'm a better listener now. I'm
hmm.
able to see people how they are behaving and why they are behaving, right? So I think that's how I say that I changed when I discovered design.
That's very interesting. Okay, so this is pretty it's a pretty fundamental shift because just I wouldn't expect that a new like a new area of study could make somebody shift in such a fundamental way at an internal level. But I'm curious again. So how do you define design versus design thinking?
That's a very good question that you asked. And a lot of people do not ask this question at all. A lot of people just assume things, assume,
Right.
oh, design, yeah, design is a UX design is a design thinking, design thinking is something like that. But actually, there are few very fundamental differences.
Okay.
And let's just define them.
Okay.
Let's start defining each component, and that's the way I learn.
Yeah.
When I learn a new sentence in a new language. I try to break down every pieces of it and try to see. So it's the same thing of how I started defining design or design thinking for others, just to take out all those concepts that are um, a misconception to others, and
Mm.
clarifying those. And I would not say I'm the best person. There could be better people than me, professors or so, uh, who could define it better. But let's see how I define it. So let's start with the word design itself.
Mm.
What is a design, and how do you define it? For me, design at its core is an intent.
Okay.
It's an intent to
Mm.
solve a problem.
It's an
And
intent to
it's,
solve a problem. Okay.
yes,
Mm.
when you have an intent to solve a problem, you are designing something. That is a design.
Okay.
But it is nothing right now at this point of time, a practice that can be said as design thinking or service design or UX design or UI design. We don't know
Okay.
anything about it right now. It's
Right.
just an intent.
Okay.
When we start adding components to it, I use the word component a lot because maybe I'm from a technical background, but I would just say aspects. What are the aspects of design,
Right.
right? And like I said, there are people who can define it different ways. For me, there are three core important things when I try to define design.
Right.
The main thing that I see that is the context.
The context. Okay.
And yeah, so I guess all three of them are important in their own way. But
Mm.
context is one thing that defines what are we talking about? What is the
Mm.
problem? What is
Mm.
the pain point? What is the gap we are trying to solve? Who
Mm.
are we solving for, right? Who are the people that needs to, or it's the people, or it's actually other service, or it's actually a machine, you know,
Mm.
to talk about more about what is it. The context is one of the parts of design that actually define design, right? The other part is the choices that we make.
Choices. Okay.
Choices. So selecting who are the people, who are not the
Mm.
people.
Mm.
That's one choice, right?
Mm.
Design is small or big. What is the scale? Design needs to be worked just in the day or night. There
Mm.
could be various things, various
Okay.
choices that we make for design in
Okay.
that context. So it's almost like setting parameters to um, to the context,
Mm.
and maybe in more professional way, you come up with matrices that you're defining the system in and needs to cater a million people per hour or so.
Mm.
Those things.
Mm.
Or more technical things, and we have a budget of 500 million. It has to, um, cater in that, and we need to have sustain the project for next 5 years. Those things. So all these choices that we make for this context is what is the second aspect.
Okay.
Now, the last aspect that is my favorite is, and a lot of people do not really care for it, in especially in professional setting, is the creativity.
Okay.
Design has to have this creative aspect. Otherwise, many times it's just cookie cutter.
Mm.
Define a cookie and then you just like start defining the similar thing.
Right.
Unless you are, wearing that creative hat and then think a little bit more, push yourself, you're not humanizing the design, right? You're not using that power that God has given us to be creative.
Mm.
So I think creativity is one of the aspects that I push a lot when I, guide teams or, train people about design.
Okay. So you said humanize the design. So what does that mean exactly?
In this context, I use the humanize a little differently. In this context, I use the word because I feel as a human, God has given us this capability of thinking,
Mm.
of
Mm.
getting wild ideas and really
Yes.
go beyond what machines can do. Machines can do what we have asked them to do, right?
Right.
But as human beings, we have more power to think of creating creative solutions that that generally we do not push ourselves towards.
Right.
Generally, we say,
Right.
"Oh yeah, this is a problem. Let's solve this way." People do not push themselves to go beyond what is visible in front of their eyes.
Right.
So I think creativity is one of the very crucial aspect of design.
Okay.
So yeah, context, choices, creativity.
Okay. So creativity could also include perhaps figuring out solutions or opportunities. And if you are not able to solve the problem in a traditional way, then going out and seeing. Okay, that's interesting. So how did this framework come about then? Like, do you know the evolution of it, or was it always around in some way or
So
the other?
this is not yet design thinking. We are just talking about
Oh,
design right now.
okay, okay,
Yeah.
okay, okay,
So
okay. My bad. Okay, so that's just design. All right. Okay,
this is just design, right?
okay.
Now, design thinking provides you a framework to do all these things.
Ah, got it.
Okay, so
Hmm,
it just defined your framework, or design thinking just gives you various phases so
hmm,
that uh, corporations can, plan for it. They can have different timelines around it,
right,
and start somewhere.
right.
So design thinking is a methodology that helps you to achieve design.
Okay,
Um, but there are a few aspects that design thinking talk about is um, user centeredness, uh, desirability of a solution. So let's jump into design thinking now.
hmm,
Now we understood what design is, and then what are the things that it needs. Design thinking comes with a concept of um, a problem that is designed for humans.
hmm.
Any services, any products, any you know physical component that we are creating, it's being created for us, for
Yes.
improving our lives, right?
Hmm,
So that is where user centeredness, the concept of user centered design, is called design thinking. The user centeredness is what makes a design thinking. When
right.
you start, and that user centeredness comes from a concept called empathy. Empathy,
Empathy. Hmm,
yes. So design thinking gives a lot of focus on empathy, and
okay.
there is a whole phase of design thinking that talks about it, um, empathizing with the user.
Hmm,
So how it starts is, um, we get a problem, a very generic problem. Hey, there is a water problem in this village,
right.
and then how designers work is, there is a water problem in the area, so XYZ.
Hmm,
And then they start talking about why is really a water problem, but there are two rivers flowing around there.
right.
So
Hmm,
then start to get, but why are people complaining that there is a water problem?
okay.
So then started getting into the concepts of um, digging more. So there are 5 phases that you go through.
Okay.
Finding out more about the problem, and then gathering all the data. So all this formal process, primary research, secondary research, going and uh, doing uh, uh, shadowing with the people over there in the role, and then
Right.
interviewing people, researching, and so forth. All this happens in empathizing phase. So here's where the design thinking term comes of, you know, expanding yourself,
Right. Right. Right.
taking yourself to different. So uh, once you have that data, all the research done, geological data is gathered, all the calculations, interviews done, then you come back and you start
Hmm,
ideating. That's
okay.
when you start converging your thoughts, and gathering your information, making charts, making diagrams, reading out statements from people. Oh, this is what they said, but did they really mean it? So internally discussing. So that's ideation.
Hmm,
And then when you do the ideation, then you come up with next phase is, oh, what is then the exact problem is, let's define the problem. So that's
hmm,
come on defining the problem. Now there is no water problem, but there is a problem that sanitation is not proper in this village.
right.
They pour everything right there in the river, so they are
Hmm,
hesitant to drink the water, and so they have to find other sources. So
yeah.
now the problem is changed from water problem to sanitation
Sewage.
problem, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so the definition itself, I'm just taking a random example here, but now the problem is entirely different. So by
Hmm,
the time you reach define phase, Now you have more idea on what the actual thing is.
Okay.
And you define one problem. You
Hmm.
can define a list of problems, but generally they select. There is a whole process of selection and prioritizing that goes into design thinking. And then
Yeah.
you select top one or two problems that different teams or one team can work towards.
Hmm.
So let's, for this example, let's take one top problem. That's called in design thinking converging the idea and coming up to one specific problem that people are need to be resolving.
Yeah. The bullseye.
Yeah, our target or North
Hmm.
Star. You know, there
Hmm.
are different terms that gets used.
Hmm.
And then people start. Now comes the next phase, the solutioning phase. Um, and so in during solutioning phase, we go wild of what I call creativity. Like
Okay.
think about what are the ways that we can solve the sanitization problem. And keeping in context, because the village, the people are poor, they cannot really afford very expensive
Yeah.
solutions.
Hmm.
Or, once the government gives a funding and it gets done, it has to be sustainable over a long period of time. So those are the things that we consider. And
Hmm.
we think about various creative solutions that could come or general practice that is applied, learning from other others who
Yeah.
again so go to other countries or other villages how they have done and then using that solution here. So all those things, design thinking, the methodology lets you learn from what has been done and then implement here. So what they call it, use the term as a child's lens, how children are curious, and they see, oh, questioning and then learning, oh, maybe we can use this here.
Yeah.
So design thinking is a lot about creativity and solving problems, and combining solutions to form something new. Um, and so the concept of okay, maybe this solution will work, let's start experimenting.
Hmm.
So we come to the next piece where the prototype happens. So okay, this is a easy solution and this can be built very cheaply. Let's make this and then see what the village people say that, right? So now going and experimenting and finding out, hey, would you use this, what's the difficulty that you're finding? The whole
Hmm.
prototyping and gathering the feedback from the user. And so in this whole thing, you would see one common thing that I kept using is what is important for user,
Yeah.
empathizing with user, right?
Yeah.
So again, going back and keeping that focus towards user is what is about design thinking.
Hmm.
And at the end, while you do the prototype again, does the user like it or
Hmm.
can they use it really? And in my professional capacity, I've seen so many times, especially in technology, that oh, the leader said, oh, hey, let's build a screen and let the give it to the user. And I've seen so many times that user end up not using the screen because it doesn't make sense to them or it's too difficult to understand or various other reasons.
Hmm.
So I think this is where design thinking tells you to never undermine the feedback that you get from the
Hmm.
user and then modify, improvise. So experimentation is one of the crucial other concepts in design thinking, that keep experimenting and improvising till the time your user says, yes, this is good.
Yeah. So
And
till it's optimal for them.
yes, till it's
Okay.
optimal.
Hmm.
And the other two aspects that we need to balance, the design thinking balances three things. One is desirability that I was saying. The other
Hmm.
thing is feasibility and viability. Now,
Hmm.
feasibility is about technical implementation. Do we have enough tools or technology to implement that?
Yeah.
And the viability talks about the budgeting part that I said, like can government fund this, and then how about sustaining it over 20 years? Next 20 years, can village, internally have, you know, get it running, right?
Hmm.
The solution. So I think balancing these three main aspects is what design thinking try to optimize the solution that they create.
Okay. Interesting.
So
So yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, so at the end, the solution is being tested, and then the
Yeah.
final phase is about, oh, this solution is good, and now
Right.
we implement this, and then mass production, everyone is installed in all the houses in the, whatever village. So that's the whole process.
Okay, so that's a very, very broad process. Is it specifically used in certain sectors, or can it be used everywhere?
It is very generic. It's just a
Okay,
methodology, very generic. And that is where a lot of people say that, oh, we are implementing design thinking. But actually, they miss out some very core components of it.
okay,
Like I said, user focus. Sometimes they miss out the creative part. So it's very broad, and but each of these aspects that it defines is very crucial. Um, and many times businesses do not ignore. Many times it's difficult for businesses to apply such elaborate um, process because there is a limited time.
right.
Many of the businesses have budget constraints,
Hmm.
competition constraints, and all that. They don't have time to go into those details that
Right.
design thinking requires. So
Okay.
I would not blame people all the time. I would just say that it is it is an investment that companies have to do, and companies who are able to afford to do this, they are giants. Apple, all those big
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
companies.
Yes.
So it does have a lot of benefits, but um, it takes effort from organizations
It
to make
just
it
my
happen.
concern is that this, but sometimes when you define something, if it's so generic, it loses all specificity. So then a lot of folks who think they understand it, they'll say we're doing design thinking, whereas they're not doing design thinking. So is there a gold standard that can be that organizations and teams can compare themselves to keep themselves grounded?
Well, again, not gold standards, but finding the right people who have done it multiple times
Hmm.
can help you towards it. And design, like I said, is a generic concept.
Yeah.
If it works for you, it's great.
Hmm.
If it did not work, then it did not work. But generally, when you follow a methodology, you
Right.
come up with something that is better than it was before.
Okay. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah,
Design. So what I'm understanding is design is ultimately an intent to find a solution, and then the design thinking helps you get there. Now,
yeah,
explain to me why did the word design in our mental images, or at least in my mental image, gets very intricately linked to painters and then digital designers, graphic designers, UX designers, UI designers. Why is that the big like when you say design, this is what we think rather than the whole solution? So, do you have any theories on that?
No, I guess it's not wrong to think that design is, like I said, creativity is one of the crucial parts. And
Okay.
but the people have to understand that creativity is not only linked to creating something beautiful. Creativity is linked to, again, solving a
Yeah.
basic problem.
Yeah.
You are not able to clean your teeth and toothbrush. A plastic toothbrush helps it, right?
Yeah.
You're not able to comb your hair. A normal plastic comb is able to help you comb your hair, right? So it's
Yes.
a simple thing. It doesn't have to be a Picasso or created an image or something very creative music. It doesn't have
Hmm.
to be that.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Again, design is all about intent. And again, second thing on this is a lot of people say that they are not creative, but they forget that human beings have been given a creative brain,
Yeah,
less or
that's an important
more.
point.
Yes. So all the people, everyone, and when I do workshops, then I have people force uh, themselves to think creatively, and there are tools and practices that they can do on the daily basis to increase that part of their brain
Hmm.
besides the practice.
Hmm.
So, creativity is one thing that can be practiced. Creativity is one thing that can be improvised as a skill. There are various ways to do it, and that is something that I again keep as one piece of my workshop when I do it. Um, so I feel that at this point when you're asking me that why is art and all these UI design is not linked to design. It is a form of design, but
Okay.
it is not a complete set of design because, like I said, design needs other pieces like technical feasibility,
Hmm.
understanding of business. If the solution can. So design is not a one-person job. It is
Hmm.
that is why design thinking calls for T-shaped team,
Hmm.
right? T-shaped team where people come and collaborate and create a solution.
Okay.
So I think that is where collaborative teams are important while creating or solving a problem.
Interesting. Okay, so I always have, there is this caricature: a left brain person, a right brain person, logical person, creative person. I don't
Yeah.
feel that's, I'm not comfortable with that distinction, because I think there's a bit of both everywhere. So, do you have any theories on, like, how does the logical portion compare with the creative portion? And the logical portion would say, "Hey, this is too stupid," but the creative portion would be like, "Let me just try it out." Like, how do you handle the tussle?
Um, Again, when you keep your North Star, I'll use the word North Star, is what is the goal of the design, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Now, goal of the design defines the tussle um, of what is your focus should be.
Right.
What does your user want, right? And so it's what I call it is whenever there is a tussle,
Hmm.
go to the mathematics, and it gives
Okay.
you the right answer, right? So
Hmm.
when I talk about mathematics, I say
Hmm.
go calculative and use the tools and technology that helps you define your um, thoughts into
Hmm.
more structured form.
Okay.
So whenever people talk about, hey, I like this idea better, and they are saying this that because there are biases in design,
Hmm.
people come up with their own ideas of what is better,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And then they fight for that. So some people say that hey, this works faster, and so this should be implemented, right? So a technology person will say, hey, I'm using cloud on this, I'm using AI on this, what and all. This is better. And one person says that hey, it doesn't make sense to me.
Hmm.
What are you talking about? So whenever some things of these kind of happen, um, how I solve it is I take the whole conversation into matrices, define your parameters, and grade them
Hmm.
on different ways. And there are tools that talk about prioritizing and weighing your parameters, like what is more important for user, and then what is more important for business,
Hmm.
and then give them specific weights, like 5x to this, 2x to this, and then give the numbers.
Hmm.
And finally, what is the result? Just act on it.
Okay.
So converting the whole discussion um, into more mathematical, calculated, structured way
Hmm.
helps to solve the tussle.
Okay. So, um, in your experience, if somebody is implementing design thinking, is there like a hierarchical organizational structure that you think is more suitable? What I mean to say is, there it might be a high bar to basically say that everybody needs to agree on one solution. Like, there has to be consensus. Sometimes there will be no consensus. So what are the mechanisms then? Like, is the lead says, hey, I'm doing this because it's on me, so I'm going to do it, or like, what else can be done?
Okay, so that's a very good question, Sagar. And you brought in something that is a lot of people do not understand, and there is where design thinking fails, because design thinking is all about, like I said, collaborative teams, right?
Hmm.
T-shaped teams. People are who are experts in certain fields are brought on the table, who have expertise to understand the other aspects of the problems also, but
Yeah.
they are skilled in one particular solution.
Okay.
At the same time, business who sponsors the whole problem statement is also part of it,
Yeah.
but it does not need that they define things. So, design thinking has a lot of practices around um, voting system on a design,
Hmm.
and again, they emphasize on silent voting.
Right.
It's a concept where people vote without the hierarchy they represent. So a lot of time, if a senior vice president is entered the room and everyone is quiet, and they said, "Oh yeah, this is how it needs to be done," and everyone implements that. No, design thinking cuts that off by using tools and techniques, and so there has to be a blessing that comes from top, that yes, you have the freedom to implement what you think, and
Okay.
the team what do you call flattens
Hmm.
when it comes to start implementing creative ideas, and people go with the votes that whole team has given uh, to any idea.
Hmm.
So design thinking specifically keeps that hierarchy, breaks that hierarchy, and flattens the whole team into a
Okay.
single, mindset.
All right. So before so there needs to be some kind of a blessing or a power or an authoritative structure to create this safe space where this kind of implementation, the whatever the whole design tussle is going on. There, the team is flat. We have secret ballots as opposed to a plebiscite because we don't want people to get influenced that way. Got it.
Yes.
And then so because flatness is a great I guess structure for getting those ideas. And then when
Yeah.
the implementation happens, I guess you can go back to the hierarchy depending on whatever things is. Very interesting. Okay. So these does design thinking take does design thinking take care of this, or this is something which is outside the gambits of design thinking, the whole setting up the safe space and all of that?
No, design thinking has to be blessed by
Okay.
someone.
Okay.
And
Okay. Got
generally, someone, so that is the reason, and I've seen this very commonly, that the
it. Hmm.
design team, and I was just amazed at how it's going to work. It's because it's not going to work. And a lot of clients that I worked in, huge corporations, where the whole design team comes under IT.
Oh. Oh boy.
So you
Hmm.
understand what's going on there, right?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
They have no access to how the business is working, how the logistics, how the catering, how the other aspects of business are.
Yeah.
Design thinking teams need to come above all the other departments, and they need to have
Okay.
access, free access to the how the functioning of the other departments work. So
Hmm.
it cannot be under one, or the marketing, or under IT, or under something like that. Design is
Right.
not at all an IT component or technology component or a business component, I should say. It has to come up with the direct people who want to bring value to their customers, people who are direct sponsors, owners. So the design teams where people are really truly making sense are its own division,
Hmm. Its own division reporting to the executives.
topmost executives. Yes.
Okay. Okay. And then what about the design team? Now, do they have what is their accountability? Do they just create the problem, possible solutions, create the prototype and ship, and then that's it? They work on the new design problem, or are they involved in the implementation as well as the basically interviews and debrief what happens after a project is over? What is the level of their involvement?
Well, the primary responsibility of design teams is to develop a strategy.
Okay.
Now, strategy involves, and again, there is a distinction between when it comes to design thinking, UX design, service design. All of them have different kind of outputs.
Hmm.
Um, I think going into that would be too much for this
Mhm.
podcast, but um, I'll stick to design thinking. Design thinking is more strategic, and it defines a goal of how the organization need to change in order to cater the value that the business is trying to bring to the customers or the
Got it.
users.
Got it. Would you mind if I call design thinking just strategic thinking, or is there any specific difference between design and strategic thinking?
Strategic thinking, yes, but it follows its own methodology.
Oh,
A lot, yeah. Um, like I said, a lot of organizations have strategic thinking, but a lot of times the emphasis is not towards users. It's about living the competition, or the strategic thinking many times has
right.
goals towards becoming topmost or whatever. They when you bring the user component, that we want to be the most popular, um, uh, what do you call the chat facility,
Yeah.
TikTok, whatever,
Yeah.
small business. So that's
Hmm.
what brings the human component, and that is what human-centered design or design thinking is.
Got it. That's very
So
important point. Thank you. So design thinking has to have the user at the center. That is the point. Okay. Got it.
yes,
Got it. Interesting. Okay. So if you're consulting with somebody, a business who comes to you and he wants to, explore opportunities, what you can do with them, how do you judge a client? How do you know if this client is ready to implement design thinking in their organization?
yeah. So simple things is like it's not going to be an easy game, and we need commitment, and we need that access to your users. or to your employees. And a lot of times it's not about accessing user itself. To bring value to the user, it might be just working with the internal employees
Hmm.
and enabling them to be a better server to the users, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So
Hmm.
it really depends on the client. And I think the commitment is what we look for.
Okay.
How far are they going to be true to what they are ready to implement?
But is there a way you assess it? I mean, is there a smell test that you have? Because of course people are going to be, we are committed. But then how do you know if this client is like, can I work with them happily or not?
Um, I work with enterprises, so I do not work with small businesses. And
Hmm.
in my role, we get the problem and then we work as a team to
Right.
cater. So it's not always my responsibility to negotiate the client for doing that. But
Hmm.
we do have meetings where we ask for that commitment from our executives that to implement such and such thing, we need to have that freedom to do
Right.
it.
Okay.
And many times, and unfortunately, Sagar, I have to say that many times we don't get that.
Oh,
Um, yeah.
why?
So uh, businesses like, for example, divisions have their own priority. They cannot spare their um, lead users for 5 day workshop.
Hmm.
They have 1 hour in a day, 1 hour each week, and that is not sufficient for designing. You
Hmm.
keep a 30-minute or 1 hour meeting and they do not show up. So, in real life, implementing
Right.
design thinking is a commitment that a lot
Okay.
of businesses do not follow through because,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah. So this lethargy sets in, or like, just yeah, this is very annoying because I heard somewhere that responsibility without having the power is, I mean, it's just slavery. Because what do you do? I mean, I'm responsible for it, but I don't have any authority. So what do I do? And that blessing becomes very important that you were talking about.
yes,
Hmm.
absolutely,
Interesting.
yes. This
Yeah.
blessing and setting up the priority for other divisions that hey, you are doing your daily job, but your 30% of your week is going to be committed to this.
Right.
And it's expensive because see, one user taking out one user from the main line and assigning them to the project, you are already paying for the project, but
Hmm.
then you are paying for that labor also that is not going to be happening during that
Yeah.
time, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
design thinking does need that commitment.
Okay, okay. So this is okay. I want to basically check here that you said in the beginning where when you're gathering what people are saying, interviewing them, you said an interesting thing. We need to also assess what the users are saying. Is it actually what they want? Now, what's the heuristics for that? How do I know that if I'm changing the user's words and assuming that the intent was something else, how can I be confident in
Sagar, I love your questions. I have
that?
to say this is another wonderful question. Absolutely right. Many times when users say something that they actually don't know that they don't want that.
Hmm.
And I guess triangulation is the answer to that.
Triangulation. Okay.
Triangulation of the information.
Hmm.
Um, One is to ask them. Go
Hmm.
ahead and ask them what do you want.
Hmm.
Then you go back and research about them. What has been their past behavior and what are the things that they have been doing.
Hmm.
And second way, or another way to do that is uh, wear their shoes. Like go work with them and
Hmm.
observe how they do things. And
Okay.
many times what they're saying is not what they're doing. They are doing something
Hmm.
different,
Hmm.
and they actually unconsciously don't know about it.
Yeah. Reveal preferences. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they are many times they have this ego
Hmm.
that they will not say this. Oh, I'm weak in lifting the weight, but I'll not say that to people, right?
Hmm.
Hey, if you're having difficulty in lifting that box, we can design some,
Yeah.
utility for you, but they will not even mention it to you that I have difficulty in lifting this, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
A very simple example. People have egos, people have biases. Many times when they say that's what they want, it's not exactly what it is.
Hmm.
Um, and when I present, I have very specific pictures to ask that from audience. And many times when users see a problem, they don't actually come to the actual need. So
Hmm.
that is where the define phase of defining the need of the user is so critical.
Right.
Um, yeah, so defining the need does not come easy. It has to be triangulated. It has to be deduced from all the data that you gather.
Hmm.
That's what I call triangulation of information is important.
Got it. Okay. Now, this process requires a lot of interaction between folks who are doing the implementation, folks who are basically the whole product is you come up with a strategy document, but this requires a lot of interaction. Now, how do you account for working in cultures that are not very direct? Because it helps, if I say what I mean, I say what I mean. But then there are certain cultures which are very hierarchical. So like they would not, if the person, they will just not say the real thing. How do you, I don't know, how do you tackle that? Like if somebody is not being truthful.
Yeah, again, like I said, triangulation is the
Triangulation.
overlay. But
Hmm.
again, you know, that's the reason why we do these workshops. And
Right.
when we gather people in a room, they are
Hmm.
able to see each other, and we have these activities of team building, making them relax, and you know, uh, creating that safe environment.
Hmm.
Um, and like I said, blessing from top. Management also should say that, hey, you are open to do this thing. So many
Right.
times and I have this experience. I was one of the oil and gas companies, and I went to one of their local uh, what do you call outlet, and
Hmm.
I was talking to these people who are into logistics. They are
Hmm.
not, day to day is just their logistics, getting the inventory, marking them and all that. They're not very IT savvy or something, but they are good at what they do.
Okay.
And they were in the room, and I was like, hey, hey, we are going to ask you some questions, and it's okay for you to say, what do you feel?
Yeah.
It's okay for you to say, what do you feel, right?
Right.
And they started using their cuss words and this and that. I start my day with this, and this is so, and then, I just slammed on the table because that's what they did. Slammed on the table, and, and that is what we encourage, go free, just talk about it. So I
Hmm.
think making them relaxed and having that safe, creating that safe environment, and uh, giving them some very childish creative activity that puts them into that mode of childish people who are ready
Hmm.
to speak.
Right.
So I
Right.
think bringing that element of safe environment to speak about what the actual concerns are is what it is.
Hmm.
So
Okay.
yeah, I think that has worked for me.
Yeah.
um, and then not while they're speaking, do not judge them or do not look into their eyes or whatever. Oh yeah, this is what it is, and laugh about it. And then, but for us designers, every word that they say, we note down. Every
Hmm.
word that they say, we try to get exactly what they said as it is, because we want to make sure that those words right now what they're speaking changed into something different. Oh,
Right.
that is so bad, and we want to hear them saying, hey, that is so awesome that I could not, my day was like, zup, zup. My day went like this. So this is our goal. When we define
Hmm.
that right now, this is a problem and this is what we want to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think relaxing people and creating that safe environment in the workshop or interview processes helps us.
Okay. So this is a natural question for me is take us through the atmosphere of your typical workshop. So apart from the first part that you said, the way you need to build the camaraderie, what would be the next step that you do?
Workshops, and it really depends on how long the workshops are and who are the people involved. A lot of times and what is the purpose of the workshop? Is it
Hmm.
a ideation workshop? Is it a brainstorming workshop? So, there are different phases. And a typical 2-day workshop where we go through all the phases, um, we have a lot of smaller activities which help people to relax and do things. But we try to bring a lot of structure in terms of what we are doing and what is our next goal,
Hmm.
and why this particular phase is important in the whole life cycle. So I think bringing that aspect, like I'm trying to ideate, and these are our learnings. Please read these, and then based on this, we will, you know, want to hear what your thoughts are. So, and why is it important? So I think
Mm.
each phase need to be defined very clearly and what the intention is and
Right.
how it's going to impact what we call, you start defining the uh, our North Pole, like what is our actual goal, and
Right.
then keeping the team focused towards that throughout the process. And then moving from phase to phase, like, okay, now we have defined a problem. Are you sure this is the problem you want to solve? And
Mm.
you would see that, people, by the time we start defining the problem, people get engrossed. Oh my gosh, yeah, this is what we want to solve, yeah. And we've seen that crude people who are totally into oil and gas or other, very specific thing, and now they are totally involved. Yeah, we were thinking that now this is the
Right.
problem. Okay, so people get involved and they are excited about it. So by
Right.
the time we get into solutioning, they are so supercharged. They are
Mm.
excited. And if we take like an end of the day, this is the problem we're going to solve. People would have thought about it in their dreams, and then next day they are like, "Oh, I was thinking about this. While I was driving to work, I was thinking about how about we do this." So people are already charged for next day on the solutioning,
Right.
right? So they want to get involved. They want to be part of the things, and they feel proud that, hey, I suggested this, and brag to their other coworkers. So I think that's what energizes them.
Mm.
In solutioning, seeing that solution what they proposed and seeing that into implementation, I think those are part of the team. That team, once they get into that mode, they themselves feel energized.
Yeah.
And as facilitator, that's our responsibility to keep, you know, give them that value. That, hey, when you are here on this table, you are bringing a value.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
mhm.
I'm just curious again, one more thing. Like this has happened with me in the past and not in the context of design thinking, but let's say we like the company says, yeah, it's all flat, whatever, everybody let yourself out. But then there are informal hierarchies, in any kind of group. There are people you look up to, even if they don't really have a title. Can you judge where somebody might be exerting undue influence and not letting somebody else speak, even though if it's not happening, but like, can you pick that up from people's vibes?
Yes,
Okay.
a lot of times,
Okay.
it happens that when someone enters the room and everyone is quiet and they are not really moving a lot, they are trying to be still, and we pick up on that vibe. And I think I have that personality that even if you ask me to go to President Biden and ask him some question, I'll go be direct and then ask him. I,
Yeah.
I reached to a point where it's better to be me and stay out than
Yeah.
the solution to suffer, right?
I agree.
So I think as a facilitator, I try to protect the team.
Hmm.
And whenever I see that happening, I do have that conversation with people, that, hey, maybe you need to, speak to the team or say a word or so from your side so that team feel relaxed. I have seen that happen. Um, and that is why we focus on that. Even if you're voting on something, don't let it influence with what your leads have said. Vote it on what you think. So I
Hmm.
think repeating those things is important, and having that conversation with the leadership is also important.
Interesting. So, any you said you have a lot of certifications. So, any certification pathways that you can recommend somebody who wants to check this out?
Um, in I My certification would have been a couple of years old. In past, design thinking has been, I would use the word, commercialized a lot.
Okay.
In past few years, that means a lot of universities and companies have started um, giving certifications in it. Um, I do not give any direction in particular in anything,
Hmm.
because any course is good enough.
Okay.
I think when you are learning design, it's about your attitude itself than the theory. Because I said it's nothing much. It's just
Hmm.
like I can write an article of 4 pages and you will learn design thinking.
Right.
But it's about the practice,
Hmm.
and it's how you implement. It's those aspects of design that makes it crucial. You
Okay.
can
Okay.
learn tools like, a facilitation has certain tools. online tools you can learn and familiarize yourself.
mm,
But again, there's unless you are able to read um, your uh, your teams, that you are facilitating, unless you are able to give them a direction, I think these all things come with practice. They cannot be taught really somewhere. um, you need to have mentors and you need to follow them closely. I think
mm,
that's how you learn. um,
yeah,
I would not specifically say any particular um, any particular certification name, because I think that would not be a great thing
fair.
to do. Yeah. But yeah, there are certifications that let you practice in a group setting,
Okay,
that you can, take it up. The more you practice, the better you get. I think that's what it says. It's not something that an article you read it and you get it. It has to be practiced.
understood. I'm going to ask you another question, and I know what your answer is going to be, but I have to ask you anyway. Understood your point about the practice. Of course, that's going to be important. But just to start off, right? So, like, if I want to read like a serious book, do you have a favorite book, or is it mostly it's through practice?
I think there are some books that I can recommend. Give me a second, I'll show it to you.
Sure, sure.
I should have actually kept it near that.
No worries. I'll pause it. Or if we are back, then we're back with the books. Yes, then what are the books?
Yeah, so these are the two books that you can have, and maybe the design thinking playbook.
The Design Thinking
One of
Playbook.
the
Okay, got
Yeah,
it.
so this one, and the design thinking toolbox.
The Design Thinking Toolbox. Okay.
Yeah, so they are the series. They will just give you enough information that you need. The other resource I would say, go to NNG website. They have whole lot of uh, information on how design works, what is the best practice or not. Go to IDEO website. They have whole lot of free material that you can read. I think many of the universities like MIT and all these, they have started Stanford, and they have
Right.
started providing the courses on design thinking. But I think there is enough material that is available for you to read to get
Mm,
started. And like I said, unless you practice it, you will not be able to understand what these people are saying. You
right.
need to understand what it is. You need to already understand before you take a course.
Mm,
So I think there is a lot of pre-reading that is required. A little bit of practice is required before you take up and invest your money in doing a course or a thing.
right.
So
So, yeah.
yeah, so reading some of these books, and there are some new books on implementation, and
Mm,
especially how design thinking is changing with AI coming into picture. What are the new concepts that are coming? I think reading about those things is important.
okay. So, as we enter into the last section of the podcast, just to wind things down, just help me understand. You said you moved to Houston, and then you found there was a niche where design wasn't really talked about. So, how did you discover that? What did you do? And then you run a few groups here as well, right? So, just walk us through what do you do in them?
Yeah, so I think there was a Huxpa Houston UXA group, but their focus is not design thinking and service
Mm,
design as much. Um, so design thinking did not exist at that time in Houston. Not a lot of corporations were talking about it. Design was more of a concept that Silicon Valley or California people there would implement.
yeah.
Some parts in New York or DC they would implement, but it was not as huge in Texas.
Right.
A little bit known in Austin, but there were no groups in Dallas, Austin, or San Antonio, or in Houston.
Okay.
So at that time it was like um, there were a few other people who started a group on design thinking, but I don't think they found really a direction towards it to take it forward, and
Mm,
the group dissolved. I was there part of it for some time, but again there was no activity happening, and so I had to just like start something that happens regularly, because I think
right.
community is about keeping that consistency.
Mm,
People
mm,
need to have things happening. People need to, new people need to be able to see that okay, this is what they are looking for next,
yeah.
or what they can learn and what they can network. They are looking for a job.
Mm,
Is it for them or not?
mm,
And how about I'm too new? Where should I start learning? What should I do? So I think a community plays a lot of role in connecting people, in finding that mentorship, in letting people start from scratch. Many people um, new college pass out, or people who are transitioning, they don't have any experience. And a lot
Hmm.
of times, as a community leader, I have spoken for them for their job. So I think giving that support um, to the community is important. And
Right, right.
design is my passion, and I want people to have this in their life, and that's the reason why I support.
And that's beautiful. So, okay, as a matter of the last question, and this is going to be slightly complicated because I just like to have fun. You let's say you have a certain assumptions and truths that you believe to be true when it comes to building up the whole design process and you working. If what would be what would happen if one of those things are shown to be untrue? So, let's say there is a particular assumption that you need to basically speak to people to find those solutions. Let's say in a future research that turns out to be untrue. Is that going to change your way that you approach it, or like how are you going to restructure the framework?
And again, I'll talk about it. There's no restructuring required here, but
Okay,
we are talking here about the intent and the choices, right? So
so very very simple then.
yeah, it's a very simple thing. Like
Mhm.
I said, design is very simple at core,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And if something is going to change tomorrow,
Hmm.
I don't have the knowledge of it today. I will design something that I have the knowledge today, and I see this data coming from triangulated source of information, and I design my solution for that today. Tomorrow, did it change? Then my choices change, and I design a new solution for that,
Right.
right? So keeping it as simple as mathematical, and using all the tools and techniques just make it an obvious solution at the end.
Yeah, I like that's a very zen approach to not constantly worrying about what can happen tomorrow because you don't know. Perfect. That's a
Yeah.
perfect place to end it. So, do you have any last thoughts?
Yeah. So just on this one, I wanted to talk about something on what does the future look like in design
Yeah,
thinking.
yeah.
And I feel that, and this is something that I've started sharing with the community and a lot of people, and wherever I get to speak, is apart from the three core aspects of design thinking that I spoke about: desirability, feasibility, viability, there
Hmm.
has to be a new component that needs to get added, and that is called impact. Um,
Impact. Okay.
the impact includes few aspects like sustainability, and in the ethical aspect.
Yeah.
And why I'm including sustainability and ethical aspect is uh, whatever design we create impacts our future,
Hmm. Hmm.
um, and especially in the terms of all the plastics that we use in our
Yeah.
products. How is it going to impact our future?
Hmm.
And when we use technologies like Gen AI, and where machines are learning from our behavior, I
Hmm.
think apart from desirability, feasibility, and viability, we need to start thinking of what choices are we making today that will impact our future, right? So the impact component needs to be the core of design thinking, and it needs to be the fourth
Right.
element that needs to get added.
Got
Um,
it. Yeah. So low time preference, sustainable, how long would it last? And then being aware of the trade-offs. Sometimes it's just a 6 months project, it's a pop-up shop, done. It doesn't need to last for 100 years. Sometimes it does. So we'll have different approaches.
yeah, no, so it's a pop-up shop also, and you create, say, for example, a cream, but how are you
Hmm.
packaging that cream? What is the noise that you're creating here there about the plastic boxes, right?
Hmm.
Can something else be used? So this is not the solution for your design, actually.
Right.
You can totally ignore this fact,
Hmm.
but it is important now for us to use that impact component also.
Yes.
What kind of
Well,
impact?
that is very wise.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. So, folks, we'll be ending the show in a moment, and Tanveer and I will debrief. So, thank you very much for coming along. Bye.